Give a warm welcome for Stellar Magnet.
Hi there. So, Transformative Autonomous Organizations, or DAOs. Before I talk about that, I will see if this works. Oh no. There we go. Okay. Now let's get started. So, basically, before I talk about transformative autonomous organizations, I'm going to talk a little bit about decentralized autonomous organizations. In the crypto community today, there are a lot of debates about what a DAO is, or you shouldn't call yourself a DAO if you just have a multi-sig, or it's not a real DAO if it's not like governed by the members and it's like a token plutocracy. There's a lot of discussion about like the ideology of what a DAO is or what a DAO should be, and there isn't actually like clear consensus. And I used to be that person on Twitter, like even when Moloch DAO was created by Amin years ago, I was like, this isn't a real DAO. What? It's permissioned? You have to vote people to become members? That's not a real DAO. So I used to be one of those people that was like, this isn't a real DAO. But now I'm like, okay, everything is different today, like as opposed to some of the DAO visions from 2017. Everything's changing a lot, and I feel like it's too late to say this is what a DAO is, this is what a DAO isn't. So instead of like wasting our time trying to debate what a DAO is or what a DAO should be, what's a real DAO, what's a fake DAO, how about we just define new subclasses of DAOs, and we define within those subclasses what we think what we think is important when it comes to creating organizations, when it comes to organizing labor, and then create new shelling points around what we really want to embody as far as being a part of an organization, like a decentralized organization. So that is how we start talking about DAOs. So to introduce DAOs, or transformative autonomous organizations, to you, I've broken it up into 6 elements. And the way that this will work in the DAO universe is as soon as you are exhibiting these 6 elements, someone can observe you, similar to an astronomer observing a star, and say, oh, that organization is a DAO. So a DAO doesn't even have to be something that someone says, I am a DAO, because even if we think of like Bitcoin today, a lot of people are like, Bitcoin is the only real DAO, but no one in Bitcoin's like, we are a DAO, but everyone in the DAO community is like, Bitcoin is the true DAO. So similar to that, it's like, a DAO can be an organization that doesn't even call itself a DAO, but if these 6 elements exist, a new DAO will be born, essentially. So I'll sort of briefly mention these elements right now, but then the subsequent presentation will be talking about each of them a little bit more, not super deeply, but broad strokes. So. One element of it is autonomous adaptivity, and that's definitely an element that ties to a lot of the existing DAO ideas today, or new ideas that are emerging as far as fractalized governance, pods, subgroups. Yet there's some different elements that also make it unique. And another element that I would say it's missing almost entirely from the DAO world today, because the technology is just not quite there yet, is anonymous functioning. And this basically relates to the title of the presentation being like a lunar punk stateless society. Lunar punk, which is a subset of solar punk, similar to how DAOs are a subset of DAOs. And then the other element is labor dissolution. do people really truly want to work for the rest of their lives? How do we actually dissolve it? How do we change the definition of full-time labor, this 40-hour-a-week thing? I think that that's actually one thing that would be amazing to be more conscious of in DAOs, so we aren't just replicating how a normal corporation works. So labor dissolution has to do with just being more conscious about that. And then cosmic stewardship, that's, I guess I should probably just start advancing to the slides, but yeah, I think I'm going to do that, sorry. Cosmic stewardship, that has to do with our relationship with the cosmos, which includes the Earth and beyond. Synergetic coexistence has to do with how a DAO relates to another organization or another DAO. And autarkic experimentation has to do with how a DAO relates to society as a whole. Okay, so autonomous adaptivity. I'm going to share this great quote from Joe Freeman's essay, Tyranny of Structurelessness, and that is, once the movement no longer clings tenaciously to the ideology of structurelessness, it is free to develop those forms of organization best suited to its healthy functioning. This does not mean that we should go to the other extreme and blindly imitate the traditional forms of organization, but neither should we blindly reject them all. So within a DAO, there isn't this element of everything needs to be flat. Everything is just has to be voted on by everyone, but an option to sort of choose when should we have stewards for different functions? When should those stewards be multiple people? When should that steward be a singular person? This is inspired by cooperatives in a lot of ways. If you're familiar with co-ops, in bylaws you can create empowered committees, but it's still like a member decision to create a committee or to disband a committee. So these power structures that would be put in place whenever you are deciding to grant it to a smaller subset of people, it's nothing that is there permanently. So it still has that element of like member democracy, and there not being leadership paradigms that are just there that the members cannot change. And then another element of autonomous adaptivity has to do with the nimble structural topology of a DAO. So within a DAO, there are basically sort of 4 or 3 types of bodies. One is a sub-DAO, and that's an organization that has a revocable treasury within the DAO. And the other is a sister DAO, so that's one that might be responsible for a certain function, but it does not have a revocable treasury. And then the third type of body is a super DAO. I think it can use a better word, but that's what I'm calling it for now. And that's when multiple DAOs combine into a larger organism that has a shared common mission. And just to kind of lay it out, a lot of this is like theoretical and not built yet, but I've been mapping it out to get towards building it. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about autonomous adaptivity at the very end, but I'm going to go through all the 6 elements first. So the next one is anonymous functioning. And the quote we have for this one is from Rose O'Leary and her lunar punk thesis, which is in the e-Girl Capital article if you want to read it. And the quote is, "Lunar punk is more like a forest. A dense cover of encryption protects tribes and offers sanctuary for the persecuted. Wooded groves provide a crucial line of defense. Lunar landscapes are dark. They're also teeming with life." So when thinking about lunar punk, it isn't this aspect of like everything needs to be like private, encrypted, hidden, there's no way to like get in and participate, but there is this element of recognizing that that is actually an important part of how we have functioned as humans over the years. You know, it's like we live in houses, we have keys to those houses, we don't let everyone into our houses. We have this element of privacy that is important to fight for, and I believe that these crypto anarchist roots that cryptocurrency was founded upon, like they are being diminished in ways because it's been so easy to just create these, you know, like DeFi vehicles, make money here or there, but we're really forgetting the importance of privacy. We're really forgetting that the surveillance state is real. So this lunarpunk and anonymous functioning element is about recognizing that it's actually very important to put it at the foreground and to not have privacy or anonymity be like the roadmap item that you're like, we'll get to that like later after we scale or whatever. So it's just more like, let's recognize it as being important, because everything is not a happy, positive use case. Like it can be, like if we're more privileged, but most of the world is actually not as privileged as we are, or as many of us are. So that's what the anonymous functioning element is trying to bring to light. You know, this is a very like hidden element that doesn't exist in many DAOs today. So in like creating this Tau structure, it wants to bring it to light more. So yeah, the other element is labor dissolution. So there's this great quote from Graeber in his essay "Bullshit Jobs," and he said, in the year 1930, John, I actually don't even know how you pronounce Keynes, predicted that by century's end, technology would have advanced sufficiently that countries like Great Britain or the US would have achieved a 15-hour work week. There's every reason to believe he was right. So the essay goes on to say, it's like, you know, society has become more technologically advanced and productive, but humans aren't actually working less. We are working more, we are making less money, and it's kind of bullshit. So labor dissolution is trying to recognize how broken a lot of the market economics are, and it's trying to consciously figure out how do we actually change this. So some ideas in the Tau world, there are two that I'm currently trying to get a bit deeper on, that they're not fully formed. But, you know, it's like one thing a lot of people talk about is, oh, wouldn't it be great if, you know, just AI, we have like AI robots and they're just taking care of everything and, you know, we don't have to work. You know, there is like that whole element of sort of like fully automated, like luxury communism that can be explored a little bit more. It's like we might not fully get to a future where everything is just like AI and robots taking care of things for humans, but it's like, what does that actually look like as we build towards that? How do you actually build incentive structures where if someone does develop you know, automation or artificial intelligence within the organization, it relates to the work week hours decreasing, you know? So it's like sort of like baking that into the incentive system so you can actually dissolve labor versus it just staying at 40 hours a week. And the other element within this world will relate to housing. You know, it's like with how like affordable housing is managed today is it's usually just something where it's like something targeted for people that are just like super poor, or, you know, but I think we need like solutions more for the middle class and everyone as far as what affordable housing looks like, and that could potentially mean how we change land ownership. I think just going towards the philosophy of everything should just be in the commons, we should share it. I don't know if society is really ready for that, but we can like try like the alternative experiments which is, well, what if a lot of property was just purchased by people that might be interested in changing property relations, and you have more relationships that are like rent to own versus like you just give a bunch of rent to landlords and you're just like losing your value. So that's another element that can contribute to labor dissolution, because it's like we work partially because we need to get our basic needs met, but if we can make those needs met like faster, that can contribute towards less demand for work in the sense of like slaving away for a corporation or what have you. So yeah, that's a comic from the era of the industrial workers of the world, which was about abolishing, partially, they had a motive of abolishing the wage system. Okay, so then I have a few more minutes. Cosmic stewardship. So the Sagan quote is, "Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity and all its vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves." I don't know, maybe aliens will come to help us one day, but, but cosmic stewardship is about, as we're developing organizations in a more cosmic way, it's like we look at our supply chain, we look at like the labor conditions of the supply chain, we look at the environmental impact of those decisions, and we look at that with respect to Earth, and we look at that with respect to how humanity is progressing into space, whether it's like it looks like a very like corporations are going to space or big governments, but how does that, look? That's another element of cosmic stewardship, because just because the people don't have the resources to potentially protect space today, I think we have to really think, how can we? Because it's going to be the same thing, and like the world 100 years from now, it could maybe be better for people if we are also more actively looking at the expansion of humanity into space. And then one of the second to last elements is about synergetic coexistence, and from this I bring in Öcalan quote, and he's one of the founders of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or the PKK, for the Kurdish movement for the autonomy of the people in the, I would say, network state of the Kurdistan. So this quote is, "Democratic confederalism is based on grassroots participation. Its decision-making processes lie with the communities. Higher levels only serve the coordination and implementation of the will of the communities that send their delegates. For a limited space of time, they are both a mouthpiece and executive institutions. However, the basic power of decision rests with local grassroots institutions." So I think when thinking of how do we get, synergetic coexistence, it would be good to actually look at movements that are working actively for creating stateless societies of self-administration. Because here in the crypto conference, it's like many people are like, yes, let's create a network state, let's create a stateless society. But there are people that have been trying to do that for years, and it's a challenge, So once you are actually doing that, I think it becomes important to really learn from these past movements, these true like revolutionary structures, and for synergetic coexistence, part of the design is about how do we actually make organizations plug in together better when it comes to cooperation. Because if you actually built the smart contract for a DAO where things can actually cooperate in more native ways, maybe we would actually see it more. So then this sort of goes on to the last point, which is autarkic experimentation, and there's a Bookchin quote, and the quote is, "There can be no separation of the revolutionary process from the revolutionary goal. A society based on self-administration must be achieved by means of self-administration." So yeah, this is sort of DAOs existing within this I would say mindset of people that actually really truly want to self-administer, really truly want to be a part of a stateless society. An organization within that structure, that's like one component of it. An organization alone is not going to solve everything that is required to actually achieve that goal. But if there were a common set of elements that all organizations it's like agreed to in some ways, all organizations helped evolve in different ways, then maybe it is actually possible to eventually reach that goal of autarky in the sense of self-sufficiency, not in the sense of we will only trade within our communities, but if DAOs do want to create tools that might compete in the traditional market, like what if people actually came together to build better things than like the corporations, the Googles, the Amazons of today. So this is partially about like figuring out how within like a crypto community we can create that connective tissue as a society eventually. And yeah, this was just one additional slide that talked a little bit about autonomous adaptivity a bit, but I think I already talked about it in the beginning, so just want to close it out. The next steps are just going deeper into the elements and boundaries, putting them into practice in the Black Sky DAO, which is the DAO I'm working on. So it'll be a DAO first, it'll be a TAO once you can actually enact the 6 elements. And DarkFi will be a solution for how the anonymous functioning element can be activated. Yeah, searching for other people to help with this. If you go to that QR code, you can read more about Taos in this zine, Black Sky Nexus, and there's also some Discord links there if you dig through. So yeah, that's all.